everyone, my name is Dean Kelly and this is Liberty Watch. Today is Tuesday, December 17th, 2013, just a few days before Christmas, so we want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. And our special guest today is going to be Congressman Paul Broun of the 10th District, who is also a candidate for the U.S. Senate to fill the seat that's going to be vacated by Zaxby Chambliss, since he is not seeking re-election. So we'll be back in just a few minutes and we'll get started. We'll be talking about the budget, Obamacare, immigration, and several other issues. So we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Hello everyone, we're back. We're with Congressman Paul Broun, who's also an MD.
That's right.
Candidate for the U.S. Senate, filling Zaxby Chambliss' seat. Thank you very much for being here today.
Dean, it's great being with you and with all of our viewers today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about the thing that's the latest hot spot, which is the Ryan Murray budget, which you were one of 3 of our representatives here in Georgia that voted against it. 10 voted for it.
That's right.
Including our local representative Tom Graves, which is a surprise to me. But I know you've been outspoken. I looked at your Facebook page and saw your video about your reasons for voting against it. So give us your explanation about why you voted against the budget.
Dean, we've just got to stop this out of control spending that both parties have been doing in Washington. Both parties have built a government that's just totally out of control. It's spending too much, taxing too much, regulating too much, borrowing too much, sticking its ugly nose in our business too much. And as I said, both parties are guilty, and that just must stop. And this budget deal actually increased spending. Over the next year and a half, 2 years, it's going to increase spending by $63 billion. It just has to stop. It will not balance. In fact, the original Ryan budget will not balance, ever. In fact, he told us that he would balance in 10 years. That's false. He said that it repealed Obamacare. That's false. And in fact, it continued to fund Obamacare. It continued to get the taxes of Obamacare. We've just got to put this country back on the right course. Government must live within its means. And this budget does not do that. I've never voted to raise the debt ceiling. I've never asked for a earmark. I've never voted for a stimulus package. I've never voted for a bailout. I've never voted for a tax increase. In fact, I believe if 10% is good enough for the Lord, it ought to be good enough for Uncle Sam. And the only way we're going to get there is to reduce the size and scope of government. And that's what I've been fighting for ever since I've been in Congress.
Absolutely. Government's getting way too big, and it's just not affordable.
Yeah.
Don't you think part of the problem resides with us as citizens also, because we're requiring more and more from our government rather than putting limits on ourselves?
Absolutely. In Hosea 4:6, God says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." We have a tremendous lack of knowledge all across this country. How far we've gotten away from the original intent of our founding fathers of limited government. Government that's controlled by the Constitution as they intended it. Congress, even conservative Republicans, have expanded the size and scope of government. It just has to stop. We've got to go back to those enumerated powers in Article 1, Section 8 for the Congress. That's the way I vote. If it's not one of those 18 enumerated powers, I will not vote for it. And we've got to let the American people understand how far we've gotten away from those philosophies that have made this country so great. The greatest political experiment in all of human history. We've got to go back to those foundational principles, and that's what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting to get power and money out of Washington and get it back in the hands of the people. In fact, that's why I'm so excited about the Tea Party movement all across this nation. It's because the Tea Party movement's all about reclaiming our government, reclaiming America away from the politicians, away from the bureaucrats in Washington, and sending those powers back to the states or the people as the 10th Amendment says that they should be.
You know, a few weeks ago we had the legislation that was introduced to delay and to fund Obamacare. Tom Graves headed that up out of the House, and
well, he had the bill.
Yeah, he had the bill.
He didn't really.
He didn't head it up, but he introduced the bill with all of y'all's support. And of course, we had Ted Cruz in the Senate who championed that. Now, the media did a good eye of giving the Republican Party and the Tea Party a black eye from a result of that. But for me, with recent events, especially what happened with if you want your health care plan, you can keep it, we found that was absolute just a lie. So
Right.
Obamacare has turned into a debacle. To me, that should have gave the conservatives in the House and Senate more enthusiasm about standing up to Obama with this and with the Democrats on this budget, but they seem to have taken the opposite approach. Like, because of that black eye, they've been cowered down a bit. How does that appear to you? I mean, do you think my summarization is about?
Dave, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Nobody wanted to close the government down, but there was just a handful of us in the House, as well as Ted Cruz and Mike Leo in the Senate, that realized that the continuing resolution was the only vehicle we had to try to stop Obamacare before it started on October the 1st. And so we started the process of trying to defund, delay, and repeal Obamacare. Obamacare is not fixable.
That's right.
We've got to get rid of it. I will not vote to fix it. There's no reason to fix it whatsoever. We've got Republicans that want to fix it. In fact, one of my opponents in this race wants to fix it. We cannot fix it. Just making the president be put on Obamacare, making the Congress not have the subsidy that the OPM wants to give Congress, and I've supported that too. But we've got to get rid of it. We've got to totally rip it out by the roots and replace it with something that makes sense, that empowers patients. My Patient Option Act does just that. It's a 77-page bill that will totally repeal Obamacare, and it puts in place policy where everybody in this country will have much cheaper health insurance than they have today. It makes all health care expenses 100% deductible for everybody in this country. It does some very innovative things. As a medical doctor, I've given away hundreds of thousands of dollars of my services over my career of practice in medicine. Doctors do that, particularly some of the doctors who've been around for a little while, just do that. That's what we do, because we're about taking care of our patients and serving our communities. What we do in my bill is we give a doctor a tax credit for seeing indigent patients. And then we give individuals a tax credit for contributing to indigent care in their local community. In Athens, Georgia, where I live just outside Athens, there's a clinic there called Mercy Health Clinic. I've contributed my time. There are about 80 doctors in the community that go down there and see patients for free. And if somebody in the community wants to give money to the Mercy Health Clinic, right now today, of course they get a tax deduction for doing so, but I give them a tax credit. What I'm doing is moving money out of Washington, out of the hands of the politicians, out of the hands of the bureaucrats, and putting it where it should be, and that's taking care of patients. And what my bill will do, a mom who has a sick child can pick whatever doctor she wants to go to. She can know when she goes to that doctor that she and her doctor can decide what's the best kind of treatment for her child. She also knows if that child needs to go in the hospital, she would have been able to buy health insurance that she could afford, that she decides upon, not some government bureaucrat telling her what kind of health insurance her family needs. And she will know that her family won't go bankrupt if her child has to go to the hospital. But she'll also have the peace of mind that with her elderly mom and dad, they will get good quality health care also. That you won't have some federal bureaucrat telling her and a sick mom that their mom can't go in the hospital if she needs to, or that a dad can't get his treatment for his diabetes if he needs that. And that's what Obamacare is going to do. It's going to limit all those choices, but I open them up for that mom so that she has the peace of mind, so that she can be able to choose her own doctor, that she can buy her health insurance at what her family can afford. And that's what my bill does. That's the reason we need to repeal Obamacare. The bill does that too. Totally repeals it and puts in place policy that puts patients in charge, along with their doctor, of all healthcare decisions. That's what we should be fighting for. That's what I'll be doing in the U.S. Senate, is getting that passed into law.
That sounds like a great plan. That's been my way of thinking too. Free market solutions, put the power back in the patients and in the doctors. And just the bureaucracy of Obamacare is just too huge. I think Obamacare created another 150 new organizations or committees. So it's just a huge bureaucracy where all the finances and all the money is going to be spent just on the bureaucracy before you even got involved with health care. But you bring up a point with that too, is that to me the Republican Party just can't be the party of no, even though we do need to say no to Obamacare. We have to have solutions. And we just cannot say let's get defund and eliminate and get rid of Obamacare. We have to have something to replace it is, because healthcare is a problem in our nation.
That's right.
But when you and I were growing up, healthcare was very affordable.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happened from then till now?
It's the government sticking its nose in the healthcare business that's made it so expensive.
Right.
And we've got to get the government out of it. And my Patient Option Act does all those things in 77 pages, so that the folks that are watching can make their own decisions, and we can literally lower the cost of health care and services for everybody in this country.
Now, how about tort reform? To me, that's a big issue, and I know Georgia has passed some tort reform legislation. But to me, that's still a big problem, because, you're a physician, you understand this better than I do, from the defensive medicine point of view.
Right.
Is there some additional steps that might need to be taken in that area as well?
My bill does not include tort reform. All the other Republican plans do, because we do not have in our U.S. Constitution, as it was intended, any authority whatsoever to have a federal civil justice system. In fact, this big federal criminal justice system that we have, most of that's unconstitutional also. We need to take those powers back to the states. Mm-hmm. Tort reform should be done on the state level, not on the federal level. We have no authority whatsoever in this document to do federal tort reform. Mm-hmm. I believe in this document as our founding fathers meant it. If it's not one of the 18 things in Article 1, Section 8, it's 1 3/4 pages in this little booklet. If it's not one of those 18 things, I'm not going to vote for it. When I was sworn in the Marine Corps, when I was sworn into the U.S. House of Representatives, I swore to uphold the Constitution against enemies, both foreign and domestic. We've got domestic enemies of this Constitution. They're in the House and the Senate of the Congress of the United States. The Democrats and Republicans, even conservative Republicans, that are enemies of this document. We've got to go back to what this document says of the enumerated powers. And I'm not going to vote for anything. I have not for 6.5 years in the House, and I will not vote for anything unless it's truly constitutional according to what our founding fathers meant for the Constitution to be. Tort reform is not authorized in the U.S. Constitution, so I cannot vote for it, and I will not put it in my bill.
That's a good answer. So the states need to step forward and
That's
deal with it on their own. And of course, the way California may want to deal with that, the way Georgia wants to deal with that, could be totally different, but that's okay.
In fact, that you hit on something that our founding fathers believed very firmly in, and that is that the states would be laboratories of public policy. That one state can try something, another state tries another. They find out what works the best, and then what works the best, the other states can embrace it. That's what we should be doing, instead of this idea of one size fits all, that the federal government has to do everything for everybody. That's not the way our founding fathers envisioned it, and we're destroying our liberty because of this growth of the federal government that both parties have been engaged in doing.
All right, we're going to break away for a couple of minutes for commercials and with our advertisers, and we'll be right back for more with Paul Brown. Hello, everyone. We're back with Congressman Paul Brown from the 10th District, who is a candidate for U.S. Senate seat, being vacated by Zachary Chambliss. And my name is Dean Kelly with Liberty Watch, where we drink the sweet tea of liberty and we don't drink the bitter Kool-Aid of socialism. But anyway,
I like that, Dean.
Thanks for coming back with us. This budget and Obamacare is the elephant that's in the room, and to me the two are tied together, because I see Obamacare also as a redistribution of wealth.
Oh, absolutely.
And also a redistribution of health, for that matter, when you look at it from that perspective. How do you feel, and I like what you're talking about, what's in your bill, and I think those things are very important. I like the idea of tax deductions for those that are spending money on their health care and taking the power out of Washington. How do you feel about the idea of interstate compacts between states concerning health care?
Well, we should. In fact, my bill allows people in Georgia to buy insurance all over the country. We can go to our insurance agents. The insurance agents can shop insurance companies all over the country. We open up the marketplace. The reason that the insurance companies have become so big and powerful is that they are almost working in a monopoly situation, and we take that away. They have to compete. There won't be any fat cat bureaucrat executives in the insurance companies anymore because they're going to have to compete. They're going to have to be in the marketplace. And somebody could go and buy an insurance policy that doesn't have the state mandates nor the federal mandates that Obamacare and states have put on the insurance prior to Obamacare, and we remove all those. That's going to lower the cost of health insurance. One of my staffers just recently bought health insurance. He's in his 20s. He's single. He had to buy OB coverage in his insurance policy for him. That's inane. That's what Obamacare is doing. We've got to take those mandates out. And then my bill also has what we call association pools. I'm a Rotarian. We could have a Rotary pool that's a nationwide pool where anybody who's been in a Rotary club or has anything to do with the Rotary Club, whatever parameters are set by the Rotarians to set up this pool, they could go into that pool and have a smorgasbord of insurance policies that they could buy that would be the best kind of insurance for their family, to meet the needs of their family. And my bill, as opposed to the other Republican bills, has the Rotary Club controlling that pool instead of the federal government. All the other Republican plans have the federal government still controlling health care. Mine gets the government out of health care totally. And that's the way we need to be going. Instead of just allowing the government to continue to run things, continue to make decisions. So if we could open up health insurance purchasing all across the country, as it should be, under the Constitution, and actually the Commerce Clause was meant by founding fathers to open up commerce, to regulate commerce, meant to make it regular, to make it occur. Never, ever, ever did our founding fathers mean for the federal government to control commerce. One iota. They wanted commerce to be free-flowing across state lines, and that's what my bill does.
Fantastic. Well, since and those are good things to hear. Let's shift gears a little bit, and since you brought that up, let's talk about the economy a little bit. To me, this is another area that I feel like the Republican Party needs to be a little bit more assertive on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've had growth of since 2008 of somewhere between 1 and 2%, which is just unacceptable. And we do need to live within our means, of course, and balance the budget if we can. But one of the most effective ways to do that is to increase growth.
Right.
And that's something that we need to focus on. But
and I've got the bill.
Yeah.
Seriously, I've got my Jobs Act that would grow this economy tremendously. It would bring good, high-paying manufacturing jobs back to America. It's called the Jobs Act. It would permanently reduce corporate taxes, capital gains taxes, and death taxes to zero. And it would allow businesses, small businesses to large businesses, to do an immediate write-off of all capital expenditures if they wanted to, or if they wanted to stay in an accelerated depreciation, they could do that. Either one. It's their choice, whatever is the best economically for that business. And I'll tell you how that works. I was talking to a manager of a multinational corporation that has a manufacturing plant in my district. And I asked him if we lowered our corporate taxes from 35%, the highest in the industrialized world, down to 25%. And that's what the Republican leadership and most Republicans in Washington are talking about. Just lowering it down to 27 or 25%. I said, what would be his response? And he said, Paul, if you do that, I've got about 400 employees in this plant here. We'll expand our line. We'll hire another 25 to 50 employees. I said, well, let me ask you this then. If we lowered your corporate taxes down to zero, what would be your response? And he said, Paul, I will look all over this country to build plants and move our manufacturing back to this country. We've got to get the tax burden and regulatory burden off of business and industry. I believe in the free enterprise system, and I think the free enterprise system is the engine that pulls along the train of economic prosperity and job production in this country. We've got to get the tax burden and regulatory burden off of business and industry so we can create good jobs here in this country, so we can have good paying jobs available for our children and for our grandchildren. And we're not going to do it if we don't stop this out of control spending and out of control government. Both parties are guilty, and the whole philosophy of most Republicans, on all the Democrats in Washington, is build a bigger government. Government control everything involved in human endeavor. And it's just got to stop. And that's what I'm fighting for, and I'm the only candidate in this U.S. Senate race who has that position and who's been in the trenches trying to stop this out of control government.
How important do you feel like that energy independence is towards growing our economy? I see it as being tremendously effective as far as attracting jobs back to the United States. If we can have cheap, reliable, affordable energy, to me, it would be a magnet to draw jobs back to the United States, because you're not going to have the volatility that we have in the Middle East for energy that you may have coming out of China or Europe or even Russia on some of these jobs. And which I think we're moving towards that anyway, despite the obstructions that's been put above that. But of course, what I'd like to see is, of course, this may not happen as long as Obama is in office, but to open up those federal lands, drill into Anwar, but how important do you see energy independence to our overall progress in our economy?
Dean, I agree with you completely. The EPA is the biggest impediment to our energy development, to our economic development, to job creations. I want to get rid of the EPA altogether.
Good.
And we need to have energy policy that develops all of our God-given energy sources in this country. Whether it's natural gas, oil, coal, we need to look at things like geothermal and solar and wind if they're economically viable. But the marketplace ought to determine whether they're economically viable or not. Not some government program that gives all this federal largesse, my dollars and your dollars, taxpayers' dollars, to companies like Solyndra, like this administration is doing, and the last administration. The Bush administration was doing the same thing. We need to get the regulatory burden off of our energy producers so that we can be energy independent. If a nation cannot feed itself, cannot clothe itself, and if it's not energy independent, it's not a secure nation. We need to be sure to be able to do all three of those things. And opening up our energy resources that God has given us in this country is absolutely critical for our economic development as well as our national security.
Good answer. And I think that is important for the future of our children and grandchildren.
Absolutely.
To produce jobs. We're going to break away again for a couple of minutes, go to our advertisers. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back again with Paul Broun, Congressman from the 10th District, candidate for the U.S. Senate, filling the seat that's been vacated by Zaxby Chambliss, giving us a lot of his ideas that he have about improving on Obamacare, eliminating and replace.
You got to get rid of it.
Got to get rid of it.
No fixing it.
No fixing.
Let's get rid of it.
Get rid of it. Some great ideas on the economy, and we're going to move on to a few more issues and get his thoughts on those. Let's move on to immigration. The Senate version of the immigration bill, I was very disappointed in. Matter of fact, I would even say I was appalled at some of the things that were in there. Because to me, the Senate version of the immigration bill had more to do with the American people and regulating the citizens than it did dealing with illegal immigration effectively. What should we do about immigration from your point of view?
Dean, until we secure the borders, nothing else matters. I'm not for passing any more laws. We've got plenty of laws on the books. We must secure the borders. We must start enforcing the laws that are on the books dealing with these illegal aliens. They're not immigrants. They're illegal aliens that are in this country. And once we do that, then we can start fixing the legal immigration side of the problem, which is huge in itself. So you've got two issues. You've got the illegal aliens in this country, and you've got the legal immigration system, which is constitutional, but it's broken. But until we secure our borders, nothing else matters. There's only one new law I'd like to see passed. And that one law that I would like to see passed is one to make English the official language of the United States. But other than that, I'm not for any other new laws.
Well, I agree with that.
Dean, we've had 4 presidents. Both Bushes, Clinton and now Obama, who've refused to do what the law says about securing the borders. President Reagan, when he granted amnesty to about 2.5 million illegal aliens in this country, and by the way, he said that's one of the biggest mistakes he made in his presidency. He was promised, and it was put in the law, that we'd secure the borders. We've had 4 presidents that have refused to do so. We must secure the borders. Nothing else matters to it.
What do you think the resistance is to secure the border? Is this because it benefits business as far as cheap labor, or is it have, both parties seem not to want to deal with this issue, or are they just concerned about the political consequences that can come about as from their point of view?
I think there are many reasons. Cheap labor is certainly one. My farmers that I represent now need a guest worker program that makes sense for them, where those guest workers don't go on federal programs as they're doing today, where the guest worker or the person who brings in the guest worker has a responsibility of taking care of them, and they pay taxes and those sorts of things. Our guest worker program does not work. But again, until we secure the borders, nothing else matters. We've had, all 4 presidents have had open border policies. They've all looked at the United States as being just one entity in a world of states, and there's not much difference between America, between the United States and Mexico, or Saudi Arabia, or any other country for that matter. I don't believe that. I believe in American exceptionalism. Until we secure the border, that's a national security problem. It's an economic problem. It's a criminal justice problem. Until we secure the borders, nothing else matters.
I agree 100%. And secure the border, let's see the fence built, and let's not only put the people on the border secure it, let's give them authority to do what they need to do down there.
Absolutely.
Let's shift gears again because we have limited time. I want to talk about kind of with lots been in the news lately on the overreach and the abuse of power from our executive branch.
Yes.
With the NSA, where they are kind of basically spying on American citizens, or spying in on their telephone records and communication records and things of that nature, where we recently discovered that we're even spying on our allies. I did an interview with Mark West, the president of the Chattanooga Tea Party, about 6 months ago. Took them 3.5 years to get their 501c4 status. Obvious discrimination and harassment of conservatives. And of course we have Benghazi, and of course it all started with Fast and Furious. So there's been a tremendous amount of mistrust that has developed during this administration as far as the government is concerned, and their overreaching and their abuse of power. Is there any way that Congress can deal with that issue, or do we just have to wait till the next election comes around?
No, Dean, we should be dealing with it. But it's not only this administration, it's even the previous administration.
Right.
The Bush administration put in policy in the authorization for use of military force in Afghanistan, put in policy in the law now, because Congress agreed to that bill, where the federal government, if they declare someone a terrorist, can lock up a U.S. citizen, not charge them with any crime, keep them indefinitely, and not even give them an attorney. All of those things that you mentioned are a reflection of a government that's absolutely out of control. Both parties are guilty. All those things. NSA spying on us. They have no constitutional authority to do that. We just saw, I think yesterday, where a federal judge said it's unconstitutional. Finally, we had a federal judge that will rule constitutionally, at least on that issue. But all those issues, Benghazi, Fast and Furious, the IRS targeting not only the Tea Party groups, but a lot of conservative groups, pro-life groups. We've got, I'm on the Homeland Security Committee, and we had Janet Napolitano and her administration in Homeland Security declared anybody who is pro-life or is pro-gun, has been in the military, who believes in liberty, and even the Tea Party groups, as being terrorists.
Yeah.
And all of these things, Dean, are a reflection of government just absolutely out of control, and it must stop. And that's what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for liberty. I'm fighting to stop this out of control government, and Congress has the authority to do so. But the problem is we don't have enough conservatives, particularly in the Senate, to fight for liberty, for individual liberty. And it's because most people in Congress want the power, even the conservatives, and it's got to stop. And that's what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for individual liberty. I'm fighting to get the government out of your pocketbook and out of off your back, and particularly off the children's backs with all this debt that we've put on their backs. It's morally reprehensible, and it's got to stop, and that's what I'm fighting for.
Let me ask you about this.
I didn't mean to blow you away.
No,
but
you didn't. You're passionate.
I am passionate about this. I'm a Marine. I believe in this country. I believe in liberty. We're losing it.
There are many conservatives in Georgia and other states that I talk to on a regular basis who feel like the states have to be more assertive about this.
Absolutely.
And that, so they look at nullification, which matter of fact, there was a bill introduced in Georgia on Monday concerning Obamacare through the Georgians for Healthcare Freedom. And I think North Carolina or another state is introducing similar legislation. And also you have some proponents of Article 5 in the Constitution as far as making amendments. Do you think these things are wise, or do you think these are avenues that the states need to consider to bring the federal government under control? Or do you think that could possibly be a dangerous thing?
I think a constitutional convention would be extremely dangerous. And I'm not for that. I'm for balance in the budget. I've got the strongest balanced budget amendment to the Constitution that's in Congress today. But any constitutional convention, once it starts, there's no way to control it. Mm-hmm. None. And they can totally throw out our current Constitution and rewrite it. And don't you stop for a minute to think that anything else but states like Michigan and California would love to rewrite our Constitution. We've got a great Constitution. We just have to apply it as our founding fathers meant for it to be. And in fact, during the Constitutional Convention, they discussed a balanced budget. And they decided that they did not need it because of the enumerated powers. But we've got to get the American people demanding going back to the constitutional principles of limited government, the enumerated powers. Congress has only 18 things that we're supposed to be voting on. 18, that's it. Some people would say 20. I won't quibble about that. But most of what Congress has been voting on, most of what the federal government's been doing, is against what our founding fathers meant for government to be. And we've got to get the American people demanding constitutionally limited government. And don't be misled. I've got candidates in this race for this U.S. Senate that are even claiming to be original intent constitutionalists. Every one of them say they believe in the Constitution. So does Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi. All these guys that are running that say they believe in the Constitution, they have not voted that way. Mm-hmm. They propose things that are unconstitutional, and the American people have been duped and have been led to believe that the federal government needs to do everything for everybody. We've got enough money in this country to take care of poor people. We've got enough money in this country to make sure that everybody in this country gets good quality health care. We have enough money in this country to make sure we have a world-class education system. But the federal government is not the answer to any of those things. Paying high-paid, fat-cat bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., instead of spending money on people here in Georgia, or in Tennessee, or Montana, or Texas, or New York, or California, is why government has gotten so big. We've got to start demanding less government. We've got to move those powers back to the states or to the people, as the 10th Amendment says. It's or, not and. We've got to move those powers back. We've got to stop fleecing, shaking down taxpayers and sending money to Washington, D.C. More money in Washington means more power and control in Washington. But it means less power and control over our own lives. I'm trying to get the money back into your pocket, back in the taxpayers' pockets, and get the power back to the states or the people, as the 10th Amendment says. And I'm the only candidate in this U.S. Senate race here in Georgia. And there are very few, even nationally, that believe that. The Senate is going to be the issue. as we go forward in the next Congress. We've got to have some people who are going to fight for liberty, and that's what I'm fighting for. That's the reason I need people to help me. Financially, by contributing, going on paulbroun.com, it's PAULBROUN.com, and contributing money to my campaign, volunteering, sign up for our newsletters, send them to everybody on their email list, be a friend on Facebook, repost my Facebook postings, follow me on Twitter, retweet what I do there, and just be involved in regaining liberty in this nation. That's what I'm all about. I'm fighting for our children and grandchildren's future, and I need the American people to help me.
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
meeting with us today. I've enjoyed it very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.